Date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Perrin.
Here.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Here.
Councilmember Whites.
Here.
Councilmember Winograd.
Here.
Mayor Vagianos.
Here. Will you all please join us in a salute to our flag? And before we go to public comment, I know that there's been quite a bit of discussion about some contaminated soil at Shedler property. And I just want to say that yesterday, myself, Keith, Chris Rudeshauser had a Zoom call with Tom Farrell, who is the head of the Contaminated Soil Division at DEP. And we discussed the parameters of what's going to happen, which is we are now testing the soil, again, according to their directive, and we have agreed ahead of time that we're just going to do whatever it is that they ask of us to ensure that the entire site is clean. So, and with that, we will go to public comment.
Good evening. Ellie Gruber, 229 South Irving. I'm not here about the soil, so big surprise. I just have 2 points, please. At the last meeting, council member quoted the ad hoc committee report as proposing coconut-based artificial turf. I was a member, and as I've said, that this is correct, giving the information that many years ago. Since then, many more scientific studies have proven that no artificial turf, no matter what the plastic pebble replacement, are with significant chemical risks. We didn't know about PFAS at the time, and we do now. Also, like some restaurant menus, the council member chose from a column A, but not from column B of the same report, when it specifically says a mid-size field, walking paths, mid-size, the one agreed upon by residents, the committee, and 2 previous councils. A need for young soccer players. So you choose to pick one part of the committee recommendation as it suits. This is not transparency. It's deceptive. All of the sports groups who would rather kill any plan that was decided on in the most democratic manner, in favor of trying to overturn years of study and agreement. Why? All this has done is to ensure that nothing will be done on the property for years. And what has been done because of your insistence that a professional size field be created? You've caused such damage to the area by savage cutting of some age-old trees. The ghost of George Orwell must be laughing right now. You have a calendar dedicated to trees. You call Tree City. You did a great job downtown, thank you. But to savagely cut down trees in a neighborhood that has been traumatized enough. I find it funny that the group who wants to use the house, and I thank them, that nobody even knew where Shedler was. This is a neighborhood, a tax-paying neighborhood that has been ignored. Without a school, without a park, your plans are killing a neighborhood. And why are we concerned who live miles away? Because we're nervous that you might be coming after us next. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie.
Ann Loving, 342 South Irving Street. It's great to hear that you plan to comply completely with the DEP. I mean, we would expect nothing less. Of course you're going to comply with the government's request to make sure the soil is clean. My biggest concern is not that the soil is contaminated. My biggest concern is that this was known on the 11th of December, and we, the public, did not find out till the 31st of January. I don't ever want to hear the word transparency coming from your lips again, because that was a complete cover-up not to tell people who spend their time in that park, who walk their dogs in the park, who take their children to the park. You knew the soil was contaminated, and you didn't tell anyone until the 31st of January. It's disgraceful.
Thank you, Ann. Anyone else in the audience? No, we'll go to our hybrid access. Monse, you're up.
Hello, Monte Limon, 494 East Saddle River Road.
Excuse me, could you speak up a bit? We can just about hear you.
Yeah, my name is Monte Limon. I live in 494 East Saddle River Road.
So much better, thank you.
Sorry, I'm a little bit sick.
All good.
Okay, well, first of all, I would like to thank Keith for taking the time to visit each of our houses along the Saddle River Road, Saddle River, and I think he got a clear impression of the difficult situation that we are in with the increasing frequency of flood events. So I just want to reiterate my and my neighbors' commitment to cooperate in any way we can. And I would like to keep receiving information about the progress with the Army Corps of Engineers. And finally, I know that Keith visited the bridge going under Route 17, and I would like to know his assessment of the status of the bridge, given that this is the bottleneck that guarantees future flood events along East Saddle River Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Monse. Next up, Susan. You're still on mute, Susan.
Hi, Susan Ruan, 705 Kingsbridge Lane. I want to thank Keith, the village manager, for coming out to view the homes and the flooding on Saddle River. I know it was on a Saturday, so it was time, personal time that he was taking to do it. Oh, I apologize. I didn't know if I was still on. Also, I wanted to bring up a few items. One is the Shedler, that it was, that there's a contamination. I know that Orchard had contaminated fields or contamination as well. I hate seeing good money follow bad, but yet if you're going to be turfing something that's contaminated, are you going to follow the same path as Orchard, where they're going to be spending time cleaning that up over the years because the contamination's never really fixed? The second is with the flooding on the rivers, I would like to make sure that money is allocated for river maintenance from the budget. I know I didn't call in on Monday for that, but that is something that is an ongoing problem for all the waterways, that we now have to deal with the increases of flooding in all the streams, not just Saddle River, not just Hohokus Brook, but there's other places that are also getting flooded with waterways. And then finally, with a change in topography of Shedler back to Shedler, is I just want to make sure that that's not going to be causing additional flooding down to us. I mean, I've been talking to residents near the high school field, and they were promised 16 years ago that there wouldn't be an increase of flooding because to make it turf, and now they have seen the opposite. So that is something now that we now are really concerned about. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Susan. Next up, Ed. You're on mute, Ed. Still on mute.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Hi, how you doing? Ed Fleischman, 518 East Saddle River Road. Just want to thank Keith for coming out and taking a look at the homes on Saturday. In regarding the footbridge on East Saddle River Road and Terhune Road, we were just curious to see if he thought that that also would, in agreement that creates a choke point in the river, and if he's going to have the Army Corps engineers come out and look at the situation, can they review that as well and see if there's something they can do at the bridge? Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Next up, Rurik. And you're on mute, Rurik. There you go.
Good evening, Rurik Halaby, excuse me, 1 Franklin Avenue. As I think of some of the criticisms that have been mentioned about the operation of the present village council, I can think of 2 beautiful English words. One is benighted, the other is disingenuous. Benighted and disingenuous. Look them up in the dictionary. I mean, for anyone to charge you with lack of transparency, let's go back to September 8, 2022, when a senior member of the village council prided themselves on, and I quote, "While updates and information on the house and property have been light and almost non-existent, I think we were avoiding interference. I think, in fairness, this has worked out quite well." Yes, no, the 4 of you have not, and I repeat, have not been light or non-existent with all the information you've been providing. Also, the idea that turf is bad and that grass is good, just black and white, is ridiculous. I mean, a grass, you have to fertilize it, you have to use chemicals, you have to mow it, you do so many more things to it than you do with the artificial turf. Sure, there are disadvantages to both. So I would just stick to your path. Don't get in any way riled up by these charges that are ridiculous. Now, as far as the berm and the soil that was moved, I remember making a comment way back, because as you all know, I'm 100% against the berm, which eats up 1 acre out of the 7 acres. And not one member of the so-called Shedler people have said anything about it. And my comment was, the berm is being built on the cheap and on the sly. On the cheap and on the sly, and I stand with those words. And I wish I had support from certain members of the community. And when they see the berm with the miserable weeds growing on it, it looks like an absolute eyesore. Anyway, you guys, the 4 of you, and I'd like to one day include a 5th of you, but you have been driven by what is good for Ridgewood. You have been as transparent as an open book, and don't let anyone talk about your lack of transparency. Don't let anyone talk about you misleading the public. You are as honest as the day is long, and I support you fully. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rurik. Denise, you're up next. You're on mute. There we go.
Not anymore. Good evening, everybody. Denise Lima, 319 East Glen Ave. Just a few topics to go through. I attended the budget meeting last week. Great to see the open conversations with everybody. Just, reminding that, we can't have another 6% tax increase year over year, and continue to ask everybody to really push the envelope on must-haves, versus nice to haves, and challenge every department head to, relook and reinvent the things that we're being charged for, whether it be services, garbage, leaf pickup, or shared services. So I look forward to the next version of that. The webpage, my comments are, yes, it's faster. Some of the things on there are much better. Kudos to Dylan. I've been sending over probably a dozen or so recommendations and changes that he's been making, and I think that's great. I still don't understand why we have a second, web page that we're supporting. We have multiple click-throughs. We have still broken links. So I think there's some ways to go there. Last year, we didn't do any updates on the master plan. We spent 5 years, $500,000. I have a message into the council about looking for an update. We haven't implemented anything from the master plan, so I'm looking forward to that. I had mentioned the town garage. Last year on February 7th, we filed a complaint, the village filed a complaint against the contamination on that site. And what's the update on that? What are we doing? I know it's not our property, but I think we have some issues with the contamination and, where do we stand with that? Hybrid access, yes, that's an accomplishment. I would say let's not stop there. How do we get the Sunshine Binder online for the hybrid access conversations? How do we get the planning board and Board of Adjustments to at least do Zoom? Maybe they don't do a full, a full hybrid like we're doing here, but, baby steps is great. So why don't we get them on Zoom? Like, what's next for the hybrid access? Because I think there's more to come there, and I'm looking forward to everybody giving some feedback on that. And last is the zoning, planning board, rather. They scheduled for 22 meetings last year and only met less than 50% of the time. So I don't know whether there's no applications or, why we're getting cancellations, but yeah, just thought I'd bring that up too. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Denise. And that's all we have. And so let's move on. And,
Can I just ask a question?
oh, by all means.
Thank you. So I think a lot of the nervousness about the soil possible contamination is just the unknown. Is there anything, Keith, that you could tell the public? I mean, there was soil taken from 6 different places, correct?
Correct.
And I assume all 6 were tested,
Correct.
and all 6 came back negative.
All
that it-
6 were tested satisfactorily at the time. Keep
Okay.
in mind that this complaint that was sent to the DEP was sent in September of '23. That is what caused the DEP to take another look at all of this. We resubmitted all of those testing letters to the DEP, and they came back indicating that we had certain test results that were slightly above the current standard.
Okay, they were okay
Yes,
for
so-
back then?
So to
but-
address your question, council member, and also Ms. Loving's public comments, the first thing we did when we received that letter was Chris Rudishauser and I reached out to Tom Farrell at the DEP. He is the point person on this issue, and the first thing I asked him, was there any threat to public health? And his answer was no, okay? At that point, we had to evaluate this letter, understand what testing standards were slightly above average, and then talk to professional consultants who actually do this work in the field. There was no lack of transparency. There was no threat to public health. There is no threat to public health. But as the mayor indicated at the top of the meeting, we have an obligation to meet the regulations and the rules that are standardized by the Department of Environmental Protection, and that is what we are doing. I asked Tom Farrell point blank, is there a reason to close this to public access completely? He indicated to me that there was not. So I was comfortable, and Chris was comfortable, in vetting this information, understanding it with the professional consultants who do this for a living, and then it was disclosed to the public at the time that we were ready to award a contract to test this soil. I can assure you that if there was any threat to public health or any direction by the DEP to do anything with the public access to that park, we would have immediately alerted the public to what the DEP requirements were in that situation.
Okay, thank you. And
Just to go on with that, in a former life 150 years ago, I was a Deputy Attorney General with the Environmental Prosecutions Task Force, so I did work with this in this area. And one of the things that you have to keep in mind is that there are different standards. And not only do the standards change from time to time, but there are different levels of standards. So what was being discussed in the letter is, if there is anything, it is a marginal, it is marginally above the most stringent standard, and that's what they're looking at. And so that's why that's why when Keith spoke to Tom Farrell, he said, no, there's no need to close the park. It's not a problem. It is not a danger. And they were reacting in response to complaints by a neighbor or neighbors who said that this is a problem. And so they have asked us to do additional testing to ensure that it is safe and to determine what, if any, remediation needs to be done. And there's no determination yet if remediation needs to be done.
And do we know, we're awarding the contract tonight, do we know when this company would be able to perform?
We're going to try to engage their services immediately.
Okay.
Yeah, they're our first call tomorrow morning. The sooner we can get this done, weather dependent, we want these answers. What I was encouraged by on the call yesterday, and again, this is no guarantee, but some of the soil has been placed for 4 years. And apparently, the soil has the ability to correct itself, for lack of a better term. And I value the mayor's assistance on this because he speaks the DEP language, because he was an attorney for them. But it has the ability to aerate over time. So some of those tests that may have been taken back between 2018 and 2021, some of that soil may have self-corrected to be under standard now that it's been sitting there in the berm for 4 years. There's no guarantee that that's the case. We have to wait. We have to see what these test results yield. But there is that possibility, and that was discussed on the call yesterday with Tom Farrell.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I had a couple things to say, just because it was with respect to my comments. Sometimes when we talk about Shedler, we forget about all the other elements. And yes, the 2017 plan said several things, and there was an ad hoc committee, and I have gone on the record that the singular change in my position was the size of the field. But I did want to, because this has been a discussion here, the recommendation went as far as these other elements, which we've honored all of them. Planting more trees along Saddle River Road, that's included in the plan. Installing fencing and at least the Saddle River Road site, that's included in the plan. On the recommendation of the ad hoc, construct a berm with tree lines across the top to address concern. That's been done. Constructing walking trails, that's in the plan. Constructing a 44-space parking lot between the house and Route 17, that's in the plan. Installing 2 ADA-compliant bathrooms with an overhang shelter, that's in the plan. Building a children's playground, also in the plan. With respect to the size of the field, the recommendation from the ad hoc, according to the minutes and on the record presented, was that the field would be 75 yards by 50 yards. The full-size regulation lacrosse field will get you from 75 to 110 and only from 50 to 60. This is important to me because Evan and I are here, we draw on information, and sometimes a soundbite comes out. That is a full-blown plan honoring many points. With respect to the turf, it's equally important to know that the prior council funded the turf. So while we talk about transparency, when we came in here, we have a fully funded turf plan. We have estimates. So I know people want to say that I've changed my mind on the size. I have. The turf, the question I would have is, when did the prior council change it from turf to grass? And if that was, why did we fund, and there's no doubt it's fully funded, a full turf field? There's estimates and things like that. I hear people and their concerns about turf, But that doesn't mean I was drawing on fake news or false information. I value what the committee did. I understand the recommendations, and I've incorporated as many points from that committee, the park side and the sports side. But to say that there's been a radical change when we've honored so many of the points, that's not really correct or fair. In addition, in the plan, when I went back, was that it was acknowledged by the ad hoc committee that that field would be used by approximately 1,000 children. So when we come in here and there's prior discussions and we draw upon them, which I did, it's always been turf to me. I'm unaware of any change that was publicly disclosed unless somebody made a different deal. And in addition to that, the only change is that, for me, the size. All these other things are included in the park. And we seem to take all that good effort and just get into two discussions, which I hear you, they're discussions: the size of the field and turf versus grass. And, you know, I pulled that out because people continue to come up and say that. This was a meaningful recommendation between neighbors and the sports community. So I'm sorry that I belabor it, but things are written, and I do have a touchstone. I have a documented touchstone, and I think this whole council does. And if it wasn't going to be turf, my big question is, why did we fund it like it was turf? So I hope that makes sense. I did also, do you want to address the planning board meeting?
Sure.
Okay.
I am going to address in my report what happened last night at the planning board, but the reason there weren't that many meetings of all the ones that were scheduled for 2023 is because there were not applications. In addition, when we were looking at the 2023 budget and everyone was aghast, the village manager made the decision that if there was no pending application, that we should not incur the cost of the professionals who have to attend planning board meetings. So I think that was the right decision at the time. That's all.
Anybody else? And since you raised the point, I'm going to just comment briefly that I know that the fields for this spring are in jeopardy of not being opened in time, which means that if they are not open, and I don't know that a final decision's been made on that, that would be 2 of the last 3 spring seasons that many of our fields have been closed. And the reason that we started this was because we do not have enough fields to begin with, which is why they were closed 2 seasons ago, because of overuse, and we had to give the grass an opportunity to grow again. And second, and the other was flooding, which we've seen what happened. We've had 3 major floods in the last 6 months, and our fields may not be in condition to open. And so that's why we started this, for those reasons. How many seasons do we have to lose before we decide that we need more fields? And with that, let's go to our manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Actually, I'll start with fields. It's in my report. We have met with Parks and Recreation. We have 3 we solicited 3 quotes for the restoration of Maple Park. And I'll just remind everyone that when we had the flood in December, because of it being in the thick of winter and us not utilizing the fields on a daily basis like we do the rest of the year, we held off until we received insurance payments before we were planning to do the restoration. Subsequently, we had the January flood event, so thankfully we hadn't done any restoration because we experienced the second flood. We're now in the process of scheduling out the work for both Maple and Vets Field. We do have some restoration that needs to be done on the natural grass at Vets as well. The low quote for Maple is $41,321.76. That was submitted by the Land Tech Group, who did the restoration of the field back in the fall after the September flood event. Tonight, I would like consent from the council to have a special public meeting on the 28th in order to approve that Land Tech quote in order to get the restoration underway so that we can have the field ready to go for March 15th when our spring season practice is open.
You want us to discuss this now?
I would like the consent of the council, if we can do that special public meeting on the 28th.
Anybody
that
have
would
any
be
objection
helpful.
to that?
No objection.
I just have a question. Is the 41,000 our expense, or is it going to be partially covered by insurance?
We received a $25,000 check for insurance.
So it's
So
41,000
yeah.
minus 25?
Correct, correct.
Okay,
All right?
I'm fine.
Everyone good?
Yes.
You have
Okay.
your direction.
Okay. Subsequently, in an effort to get Vets Field ready to service the children in March, we have one proposal thus far from Advanced Athletic Services for $21,750. There is a certain portion in the southeast and southwest side of the field that needs to be restored. What I would like to do, because we are soliciting a second quote, which I anticipate to have by the end of this week, I would like to do a not to exceed of that amount with whomever the lower quote is, so that we can schedule that work subsequently. It will be a different vendor than will be servicing our needs at Maple, but I would like to be able to get both of these scheduled for the end of February so that we're up and ready for the middle of March.
That would be great.
Okay.
Is there a seepage tank under that area at all? Any kind of mitigation? Or is the water table just too high?
No, I believe the water table is high. I also believe that the brook overflows its banks in that area. This last storm in January left an excessive amount of silt and other type of riverbed debris on the fields. This also subsequently happened on Saddle River along those folks' properties who live along the river, which I'll report on in a moment. But some of that muck and some of that silt needs to be remediated before the field will be ready and playable.
So the restoration is cleanup?
Yes.
It's not installation of any kind of...
No, the only install
flood.
that we'd be doing, it'd be a separate work effort working with the Baseball and Softball Association, is the turnover and the additive of new clay on some of the baseball and softball diamonds. But that would be a separate work effort from
Okay.
what's in this quote.
But still, the cleanup sounds necessary.
Right.
And so is any of the grass covered by insurance?
I don't know that there's a lot, other than the cleanup, I don't know that there's a lot of restoration for the grass. The only way after a flood to really do anything for the grass is either fertilizer at the appropriate time or some lime deposits that need to be put down. But Matt is working with Advanced Athletic Services and the second company that's submitting a quote to make sure that everything we need to do to get the natural grass field up and running will be done.
So, but out of pocket, you're looking at turf being less when you factor in the insurance than the grass?
Yeah, about that. It's 25,000, the 41 minus the
26,
25,000.
Interesting.
All right? So everybody's comfortable with both work efforts being on the agenda?
All good.
Okay, very good. Thank you. All right. As I mentioned, or as was mentioned during the public portion, and I want to thank Muncie, who was actually my tour guide on Saturday along East Saddle River Road and in the Kingsbridge neighborhood. She was extremely helpful, took me to every house, introduced me to the neighbors. We were able to see 15 property owners, and we actually walked 13 properties who are susceptible to flooding. It was extremely beneficial to me to be able to talk to the residents and actually hear what they experienced and when. Obviously, most of the residents were affected, if they were here this long, by Floyd in 1999, and then in subsequent storms like Irene in 2011, and then Ida in 2021, which a lot of these residents were very hard hit. Some experienced water infiltration into their homes in September, December, and January, which is a lot. I mean, people recover from a flood, things calm down, you're not dealing with it for 4 or 5 years, then you have another one that's sustainable. When you have 3 floods in a 4 or 5 month period, it's a lot. And you could tell, one resident joked with me that she still suffers from PTSD because of the repetitive flooding. So we garnered a lot of information. We had a lot of great discussion. I actually took notes at each address. I encouraged all of the residents who we were able to visit to access our flood portal, which is online and open through March 1st. I want to thank Neil from the GIS department and Dylan and IT who helped put that whole program together. We're encouraging all residents who have been affected by flooding throughout the village to access the flood portal, submit descriptions, submit information. You have the ability to upload up to 5 pictures for each event where you experienced flooding, and also a video. So we're trying to compile all that information. After March 1st, our next step will be to hand over all of that information in addition to some pictorial submissions from the different departments, especially our emergency services groups, and we're going to submit all of that to the Army Corps of Engineers for their review. So that is the next step in the process. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to have a community meeting with the Army Corps here at Village Hall sometime in late spring or early summer. But I think having 2 meetings, one now where they're just talking to us, and then a subsequent meeting with the Army Corps, which is going to be where the real discussion takes place, I think it's redundant. And my experience is you always get more people at the first meeting than you do the second. And if the Army Corps is not at the table at the first meeting, I don't think we're maximizing the ability for the community to come together and have this discussion. So that is our path forward with regard to flooding. One issue that had come up, and it came up with almost every resident that I spoke to on East Saddle River Road, was the question of whether the bridge at the end of Kingsbridge Lane is a choke point. And that is a discussion that I'm going to have with Chris Rudishauser to get an assessment on that. There seem to be varying opinions as to whether that bridge should be funded through the capital budget this year. Again, we have it slated in the capital budget at the request of many residents who have spoken at these public meetings. But the folks on East Saddle River Road, a lot of them believe that it's a threat, that if it becomes a choke point and debris is under that bridge, it's going to worsen the amount of water that backs up to those residents who are upstream from the bridge. So I think that this is a discussion we're going to have with engineering, maybe a discussion we have to have with the bridge engineer who's putting together the quote for what the repair is going to cost. But that may be a discussion we have to have going into to finalizing the capital budget in early March. I also want to mention that the bond ordinance for West Glen and Kingsbridge is on tonight. Authorizing the money does not mean that we're spending the money. So if we do make some sort of change at some point, the council has that prerogative and has the ability to do so after hearing from the residents. But I would still encourage that that bond ordinance be introduced tonight so that we can at least get the process moving forward. A couple announcements that I have. First, Jamboree will be, they're all rehearsing right now. You see the posts out on social media, but Jamboree is going to be held on February 8th, 9th, and 10th. This year's show is entitled Smooth Sailing. It's the 78th year, and the first year was in 1947, and we encourage everyone to attend as it's a great fundraiser here in the Village of Ridgewood. February is American Heart Month. We encourage everyone to join Valley Health System, Ridgewood Health Department, and the Parks and Recreation Department for a conversation about women's health on Thursday, February 15th at 10:30 a.m. here at Village Hall. Registration is through Community Pass, and we will have senior bus service provided to bring people to the event. All village offices and departments will be closed on February 12th, that's this coming Monday, and the following Monday, February 19th, in observance of Lincoln's birthday and President's Day. There will be no garbage or recycling pickup, and the recycling center will also be closed on both days. Please check your village calendar for garbage and recycling pickups for these 2 weeks, as they will change due to the holidays. You can also access the Recycling Coach app to receive that information as well. Please join the Ridgewood Parks and Recreation Department on their trip to Philadelphia Flower Shop on Tuesday, March 5th. Tickets are $80 and include admission and bus transportation. You may call 201-670-5560 with any questions. Upcoming Village Council meetings. Our public meeting is next Wednesday night, Valentine's Day, February 14th. We have a budget meeting on February 21st at 5 p.m. where the Office of Emergency Management, Ridgewood Water, and Sanitation and Recycling will present their budgets. February 26th at 5 p.m., we will be finalizing the capital budget and doing a budget summary with our CFO, Bob Rooney. On February 28th, it'll be the next work session. March 6th is a work session. March 13th is a public meeting, and March 27th is a work session. All work sessions and public meetings start at 7:30 p.m. All budget meetings start at 5 p.m. And that concludes my report, Mayor.
Thanks, Keith. And let's go to council reports. Siobhan?
Sure. I only have one meeting since last week. We had the Fields Committee meeting yesterday morning at 7 a.m. We are back to a hybrid format. We were all Zoom for a bit, and so we had it at the Board of Ed on the third floor. It was very well attended, and we had people attend online. I want to thank Keith Cook for setting that up. So we talked obviously a lot about the condition of the fields. There's been an ongoing petition from the lacrosse community, sort of highlighting all the reasons why they need the fields back in circulation, from the actual playability to the mental wellness of our student athletes, and the fact at the school side that they're not even able to host outdoor gym, which was it was very lovely conversation, but sort of heartbreaking all at the same time, because the kids, really all the kids with the lack of gym class, have sort of suffered. Their fields are in a slightly different situation than ours because they're downstream, so they have a three-step process. They too have sought three, I don't want to repeat what Keith said. They too have sought 3 quotes, and they're working through their process. Added to that, Orchard, while it's remediated, is still unplayable for large or youth feet because they're worried about the under part of the barrier coming up. It was a great discussion. The older adults have decided that they're going to partner with RSA. So you will see our older adults, I can't call them seniors because everybody gets confused for seniors at the high school or senior citizens, but they were very happy about that. We were equally pleased to hear that the high school tennis courts, which for anybody who's played there have been in rough shape, are going to be resurfaced this summer. And there was a loose discussion about non-traditional uses and the charges associated with the space. The village is up and running on Master Library. Last week there was a training session for all the sports groups. It's going well. I want to thank, it's not completely rolled out, but we are better than we were, and we're bringing things on board. The Board of Ed has had some hiccups, and we're grateful because they're letting us know of things that didn't work well for them. And I want to say thank you to Katie Fry for running the training session, and to everybody who's gotten on board with populating the data. And we're hoping that will make planning more efficient and help us even things out. And it will also sadly make us more responsive in a flood situation, because we'll be able to see the demand on a field online and move it somewhere else. And that was it.
Great. Thank you, Siobhan. Evan?
Sure, just a couple quick points. So first, I want to again thank Keith and all the village management for the second budget meeting. I thought it went very well run. Looking forward to the conclusion of budget season. Also want to echo some of Siobhan's comments around fields. For any of you with kids in the school like I do, you're getting barraged with emails about the state of our fields, the fact that so many of our kids likely will not have a field, or potentially could not have a field to start playing on in March and April. Keith, very much appreciate your work getting our fields up and running so that hopefully some of the kids from the schools can use ours. I did read in the emails from the superintendent that we're looking at trying to use fields elsewhere outside of Ridgewood. I am saddened that we have to resort to that, but glad that he's pursuing that so that we do have fields. But again, comes back to the discussion we've been having all along, which is why we need Shedler, and we need Shedler Field up and running now, and we need a full-size field now. Also want to congratulate Hung Zhu and all the other folks that were part of the Asian American Pacific Islander Lunar New Year celebration on Sunday. I know there were a bunch of us from the council there. A very nice showing from the village management. Really, really wonderful event. The diversity that we have in this town is one of the things that makes this place great, and events like that are just such a gift for all of us. Finally, as I mentioned last week, February 10th from 1 to 3, Ridgewood Arts Council is sponsoring the cookie decorating contest at Paris Baguette. I will be there. Hope that some of you are as well. I think we have a couple spots left. Thank you to Paris Baguette for hosting, and thank you for the Ridgewood Art Council for putting that together.
Thanks, Evan.
Mayor,
Lorraine?
Mayor, if I may,
Oh.
just to piggyback off of Councilman White's comments, I just want to stress that it was a decision that Parks and Rec and my office made. We strategically held back working on the fields. Now, part of that obviously had to do with weather. And when I say weather, I mean, at one point, the fields were snow covered. At one point, they were frozen. But in addition to that, we had no idea if we were going to experience another potential heavy rain event that could result in flooding. So we were strategic about holding off on engaging anyone to come in and actually start the work effort until the time was right and that it was timed out properly to have it ready for the spring season.
I also want to add one other thing, because the fields was such a topic of conversation. With respect to the petition that's going online and the current users, they were looking for Ridgewood-adjacent fields. Their criteria, one of their criteria is turfed. So Keith and I have been sending them recommendations, trying to make some connections. We did do an outreach to Faber, which is really right next to Orchard, and Keith had made some other connections. But while all that's good, it is, I want to echo what Evan said, it is sad that kids can't walk to practice now, and they really want to be placed, and their parents in these boosters organizations are really going to foot bills to take them out of district. So that is going on. I want to thank Keith, because he has more connections. I only went to Glen Rock. He has a wider network, and we're hoping at the very least we can come up with a short-term interruption plan for both the Board of Ed and us.
Good. Lorraine?
Thank you. The Cash Shell Committee met last week. This year, the summer is going to be different than the typical summer. They have decided to have just one show a week. It's going to be, instead of being Tuesdays and Thursdays, it's going to be just Thursday nights at 8 p.m., but it will run for a much longer period of time. It's going to start on June 6th and go through September 5th with the last concert being the Nerds, scheduled for September 5th. If others get rained out during the summer and they can't reschedule it someplace else, they are leaving September 12th and September 19th to reschedule some others. So they're going to see how it goes this year with just one day a week, and hopefully it will be a great success. Tomorrow, Thursday, February 8th, the village is holding a meeting regarding the safety on Clinton Avenue. This will be a continuation of a meeting that was held on January 23rd. Residents from Clinton Avenue, as well as concerned parents whose children walk to school on Clinton Avenue, have been invited. There will also be representation from the Ridgewood Police Department, Engineering Department, and myself and Mayor Vagianos from the council. I look forward to the continuation of this very important topic, and the meeting is in the Senior Lounge tomorrow at 7 p.m. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Lorraine. Pam?
Thank you. The Central Business District Advisory Committee will meet tomorrow via Zoom at 8:30 in the morning. We will be discussing a possible prospectus to market the downtown. Also, our priorities for 2024, and of course, the closing of the Warner Theater. If you would like the link, just let me know and I will forward it to you. I also want to reiterate what Evan said about the Lunar New Year celebration. The Chinese American Association and AAPI got together and put together such a colorful musical afternoon. It was really delightful. They're already planning next year's, and so you might want to calendar that. The planning board met last night. We had a reorganization meeting. The chair was voted in again, Richard Joel, and vice chair Diane O'Brien. We had an application to re-subdivide a lot or change an easement into fee simple, which is a much better situation up near the Upper Ridgewood tennis courts. And that application was granted. There will be no change in what you see up there. There will be no building of anything additional. It's just transfer of the ownership. And we also spoke about a proposal regarding the highway commercial zone. There are 2 properties on Route 17 southbound that fit within that zone. And the proposal was to amend the zone so that a use as a drive-through coffee shop could conditionally be granted. And we discussed it at length, and people were concerned about the safety, the imposition on neighbors, and also that when you looked at the 5 conditions, it really only applied to one of the properties and not even the other within the same zone and within the HC, Highway Commercial Zone. So we basically concluded that this is an issue that would be more properly brought as a variance to the Zoning Board of Adjustment. We also discussed the new stormwater management ordinance, which the state is mandating that every municipality pass. It's a 33-page ordinance, and we've done some of these mandated ordinances before. You may remember that we did the salt storage one. So this is all connected with the idea of improving the quality of runoff, allowing runoff to percolate, or they use the word infiltrate, where it falls into the earth, and using best management practices, green infrastructure, best management practices, such as swales and rain gardens and that sort of thing, to slow the velocity of the water. We do have the option. This is the ordinance sets the floor. It is a minimum of what we have to enact, but we can make it more stringent. And so our engineer has added a portion that would make it more stringent. It's actually what we already do here in Ridgewood. But it really is a complicated ordinance, and I would like to pass it by the Green Ridgewood Committee and get their input to the council before it comes to us here. We have to pass it by, well, Chris Rudershauser thought it was June, so we have a little time. So so that's what I would like to do there. Green Ridgewood is also starting a contest in anticipation of the Daffodil Festival and Earth Day Fair. We are inviting public school students to enter this contest to create a poster along the lines of what Earth Day means to me. So that is the prompt, and all entries will be displayed at our Daffodil Festival and Earth Day Fair on April 21st between 11 o'clock and 2:30 at Van Ness Square. And the winners, first place, second place, and third place, will be announced at that event. And you can drop off any physical posters at the library by April 5th, and digital posters can be emailed to Green Ridgewood NJ, that's all one word, at gmail.com. Also, if you have any questions, you can email that address, greenridgewoodnj@gmail.com. I also wanted to alert you to, we've mentioned this before, the Department of Environmental Protection, old habits die hard, is giving a presentation on their Blue Acres program, whereby homeowners whose homes have been flooded can sell their property to the state and hopefully have enough money to move to another home at higher ground. And that presentation is tomorrow night in Lodi, 1 Memorial Drive. I'm going. Call me if you want to hitch a ride.
Thanks, Pam. I have 2 quick items, one of which you've heard a lot about, the Lunar New Year celebration. I just have to point out, this is only the 2nd year that this has been put on, and there had to be over 500 people there. By the way, they also fed 500 people, and the food is amazing. So I think that if once tickets go on sale for next year, which won't be for a while, you better get them soon because they're going to outgrow this this venue very, very quickly. It was a smashing success. And again, quickly, but really importantly, something that we're all very proud of here, Standard & Poor's awarded the Village of Ridgewood a AAA bond rating again. And that is something that we are very proud of because we are, at the end of the day, stewards of the taxpayers' money. So this is something that's very important to all of us. And with that, we will go to our regular agenda. And the first item, 8A, the bond ordinance for installation of West Glen Avenue sidewalks and repair of the Kingsbridge pedestrian bridge. Keith.
So, Mayor, as per the council's direction at the budget meeting, we are moving forward with a supplementary bond ordinance for both of those projects. As I mentioned earlier, it is my recommendation that we move forward with introduction of this ordinance tonight. It'll be adopted, I believe, on the 28th, Heather. So there'll be a special public meeting as part of that meeting in order to adopt this. And listen, if there is some debate and we need some answers that we need to attain with regard to Kingsbridge and how it affects flooding, we can certainly do that between now and then. And even if this money is appropriate, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be spent if there is any change of mind. But a commitment was made to move forward on this project, and this would be the first step to funding both West Glen and Kingsbridge.
Questions, anyone?
Sorry. Is the cost of West Glen, like, how accurate do we think that is? Because I've been, a lot of numbers have been thrown around the last
Right. So we asked Chris to sharpen his pencil based on the fact that some of the retaining walls that were in the original plan are no longer necessary, especially on the upper section of West Glen. I think he was being conservative here so that we had enough to be able to complete the project. We're, obviously, once we do the bid, we'll have a better idea of exactly what the costs will be. But I think this is an estimate that we can feel comfortable with at this time.
Okay, thank you.
So with the bridge, I mean, because you did the residents walkthrough, I mean, how many, from a citizens engagement standpoint, we've heard a lot of clamoring for the bridge, and how many people had the theory that the bridge?
I probably met with 4 residents. Actually, I take that back. I met and toured 4 properties on East Saddle River Road. I actually spoke to 5 residents. All of them mentioned the concern about whether the bridge could become blocked underneath the bridge during a high water event, and whether or not that could cause additional flooding upstream. So every one of them mentioned it to me in some way, shape, or form. And one of them also acknowledged that it's an access point, from the neighborhood on the other side of the river to that side of town. So they were weighing out the pros and cons as we were having the discussion. But again, what I didn't want to have happen was not disclose that. And actually, I believe Ed brought it up tonight, and I think Muncie brought it up tonight too, during the public portion. Because obviously, if we move forward with this project, and we do have a flood event, and it does create a problem, didn't want anybody to come back and say that it wasn't disclosed as part of the consideration process.
Were there any pictures submitted? I mean, it seems pretty high to have a damming effect. The
It
bridge
does.
is-
It does
is
seem
pretty
high. It is sloped upward. There's a pretty good arc to that bridge. But I will also tell you that I don't have any pictures of the actual bridge during a flood event, but I can tell you that without question, the water gets very high over there. People have built retaining walls in their backyard to keep water out of their living quarters, some successfully, some not as successfully. Those retaining walls have also pushed water into properties further off of the bridge. This is more on the west side than on the east side. But I do believe that this is an engineering discussion that we have to have at the staff level, just to assess the possible outcomes of this.
I mean, I'm certainly in favor of pushing ahead tonight. I know we've been talking about this for as long as I've been here. I feel very strongly that these citizens deserve to have this bridge restored. With that said, I don't want to ignore these concerns. I too am having trouble picturing it because the bridge is pretty high. I very much want to move ahead tonight authorizing. We just ask that we ask Chris to weigh in officially if he thinks that this is a possibility, and if it is, to consider that and however we construct the new bridge.
Right, I mean, I feel like the bridge is already there. It's, we're going to repair it. We're really not changing the shape or height of the
Correct.
current structure. So I've never heard in the past that people had felt that the bridge was an obstruction.
Right.
This is the first time
And I'll be honest with you,
hearing it.
until the most recent flood event in January, I had never really thought about it being a choke point for the river. It wasn't until the residents started participating, mostly in hybrid access to the council meetings, where this started to become a theme, and then I did hear it when I was out in the field on Saturday. So again, I'm bringing that information back to you, just to relay it as you consider this expenditure.
I think it's good to move forward. I think we're all on the same page
Yep.
and
Let's
see
get in
what comes-
position.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's
Yeah.
be ready
Right.
to be
And we at the staff level, we will be doing our due diligence on this topic before you're asked to consider this for adoption on the 28th. And even then, before you award a contract to actually commence with the project, if that's the direction we're going.
Great.
Yep.
And before we go to the motion to suspend the work session, can we jump to 12C3 to get, because I know Sean is here.
Come on up, Sean.
And this way we can get him out of here.
So 12C3, I think that information came to you today. And Sean is here to talk about this. This is the award of contract for the landfill disposal of solid waste. So Sean, the floor is yours.
Hi, Sean.
So, we currently dispose of our solid waste at IWS in Garden, and we've been working with them since, I believe, 2015. And
Hold on one second, Sean. Can you guys hear him? Yeah, I don't think
Sean,
your
is the
mic
mic on? Is the green light on?
is on?
there it is. Is that better? Yeah.
Much better.
Now I can hear myself. So, we've been working with IWS for about, I think, 12 years now. And back in 2017, there was a huge increase, a hike in the increase. We were paying $65 a ton. And in 2017, it went up to $80.49. So back in 2019, when we went out to bid, we came in to propose our budget, and we thought we were going to get another big increase, and they did not. So they stuck with their price at $80.49. When we did our research based on, we were I think planning to go to $90 a ton then, based on what everybody else was paying, but they stood firm with their price at $80.49, and that was a huge plus for us because, those were, the pandemic happened after we went out to bid. And so that was a big help for us. And when we went back out to bid, I think we were budgeting for around $85 a ton. And the bid came back at $92.88. It was more than we proposed. However, the other option would have been Waste Management, which is in Fairview. And they, even though they're within the 15 miles that we put into our bid, they got really cute with their MapQuest and how to get there in 15 miles, which would have taken us down a lot of public residential roads, where I think we would have come into a lot of problems. The most direct way there is to take 17 to 46 to Route 9. And so I went out to check that route, and I was in a pickup truck, not a garbage truck. And it was on a Wednesday in the middle of the week, 11 o'clock in the morning, and it took me 2 hours to get there and get back. And it was going to cost us a lot of time and a lot of fuel. So even though the bids came in a lot higher, I think that I'm happy with sticking with IWS because they've been really good to us. We can get there and back in under an hour, and I think now we're at the point where we're paying what everybody else is. We're not getting that hometown discount anymore.
How often do you have to go?
Some trucks go 4 days a week, some go 3. Depends on if they're a 25-yard or a 29-yard truck.
There's a lot of money there, both in, or actually in fuel, in wear and tear on our trucks, and in time that we pay for our staff, which I don't know that anybody's done the math, but it certainly sounds like it's more than a couple of bucks.
It is.
A ton. So, anybody have any questions?
No, I'm good.
We're all good. Thank you so much for your time, Sean.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Council.
Sean.
Have a good night.
And now, let's entertain a motion to suspend the work session and convene our special public meeting.
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Whites?
Yes.
Winograd?
Yes.
And Vagianos?
Yes. And so, this is the Village Council Special Public Meeting. The date is February 7th, 2024. The time is 8:35. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled the same as provided by law of a schedule, including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor Perrin.
Here.
Councilmember Reynolds.
Here.
Councilmember Whites.
Here.
Councilmember Winograd.
Here.
Mayor Vagianos.
Here.
Resolutions. The following resolutions, number 24-34 through 24-35, will be adopted by consent agenda with one vote by the Village Council. They will be read by title only. Authorized temporary capital budget, award contract, Shedler property, imported berm material evaluation. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Whites.
Yes.
Winograd.
Yes.
Vagianos.
Yes. I move the first reading of ordinance 3991.
Second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Whites.
Yes.
Winograd.
Yes.
And Vagianos.
Yes. So ordered. Will the clerk please read ordinance 3991 by title?
A bond ordinance providing for various capital improvements in and by the Village of Ridgewood in the County of Bergen, New Jersey, appropriating $1,509,000 therefore, and authorizing the issuance of $1,433,500 bonds or notes of the village to finance part of the cost thereof.
I move that ordinance 3991 be adopted on first reading and that February 28th, 2024 be fixed as the date for the hearing thereon.
I second the motion.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Whites.
Yes.
Winograd.
Yes.
And Vagianos.
Yes. I move the first reading of ordinance 3992.
I second.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Whites.
Yes.
Winograd.
Yes.
And Vagianos.
Yes, so ordered. Will the clerk please read ordinance 3992 by title?
An ordinance to amend Chapter 265 of the Code of the Village of Ridgewood, Vehicles and Traffic, at Section 265-67, Parking Prohibited Certain Hours, and Section 265-69, Time Limit Parking.
I move that ordinance 3992 be adopted on first reading and that February 28th, 2024 be fixed as a date for the hearing thereon.
I second the motion.
Perrin,
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Whites.
Yes.
Winograd.
Yes.
And Vagianos.
Yes. We'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
No, and reconvene.
Oh,
Adjourn the special public meeting
To
and
reconvene.
reconvene the work session.
Second?
No, I need a motion.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay.
And let's get back to our work session agenda.
Mayor, tonight, under Ridgewood Water, this is item 12A1. We have award sole source contract for the SCADA software system. On December 8th, 2021, Resolution 21361 was adopted for the renewal of a 3-year SCADA software support agreement for the Ridgewood Water Department with Emerson Process Management Power and Water Solutions, Inc. Emerson is the only supplier and provider of this particular software. The water utility has had the current system in place since 1992, and Rich Calby is recommending the award of a 3-year contract to Emerson Processing Management and Water Solutions of Pittsburgh, New Jersey, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, not to exceed $19,869.12, and this is going to be funded through the operating budget for the Water Department for 2024.
Questions? Nope. All good?
Okay, we have nothing under parking this evening, so moving on to C1 under budget. This memorandum is from Chris Rudershauser in the engineering department. During the flood event of January 9th and 10th of this year, the quantity of incoming flow at the wastewater plant in Glen Rock was overwhelmed, as was the Bel Air pump station, causing it to bypass. The Bel Air pump station, the incoming flow and the wet well was found to be clogged after staff diagnosed the issue with grit and debris, significantly reducing its effective volume. They contacted the National Water Main Cleaning Company for assistance. They are on the Passaic Valley Sewage Commission Cooperative Purchasing Program under a contract, which expires in January of 2025. We need to do this work as soon as possible. They provided an estimate that will not exceed $45,000. Chris is recommending the award of this contract.
Questions? Good.
Okay.
I just wonder if there's a way we can be proactive rather than reactive in this kind of a situation.
Well, I'm going to tell you that and it's in the memo that you'll read for the next request
Yeah.
from wastewater. You know, the last plant upgrade was in 2005. So as we sort of start to finish out some of these investments that we're making on the water side through Ridgewood Water, we are going to have to start to shift our focus from an infrastructure standpoint to the wastewater control facility. So I think as we start to develop that plan, and that's probably going to be a multiple year capital investment, I think that will address some of these issues, but in the meantime, we are going to be working with some Band-Aids.
Great.
I do also want to say that this is from extreme weather as well, yes?
Yes.
Because the brook is right there next to the tennis courts, and it's a tiny brook until it's not. And it's right between the tennis courts and the back entrance to Orchard, next to the putting green.
So to the council member's point, we are dealing with somewhat of an aged infrastructure at the plant. However, both of these issues arose because of extreme weather. I mean, when you're getting 4 inches of rain in that short of a period of time, just as we're dealing with flooding in residential homes and flooding on fields and putting up dams downstairs to make sure the water doesn't infiltrate this building, we have those same type of after effects at the wastewater facility as well.
It looks like there are 3 pumps, and
We're replacing 1 as per this next contract.
And then, if we could replace 3 at once, we'd perhaps benefit from some economy of scale. So, because if I look at the difference, there's like a $14,000 difference. But I guess we can afford what we can afford.
Right. I mean, I can go back to Chris and have that discussion and see if there's an appetite to up the amount. I'd like to try to get this approved tonight so that at least we can get the ball rolling, so to speak, and then we'll move from there.
Okay.
Okay? Any objection to that, Mayor?
All good?
Yep.
Okay.
Good.
All right. Item
Next.
3, we addressed already. We have nothing under policy
No.
tonight. Under operations, E1, I'm actually going to turn this over to the deputy mayor. This is a program that's being launched by Green Ridgewood with the inclusion of graduate students from Columbia University assisting the Green Ridgewood team. So, Deputy
Yeah.
Mayor?
One of our new Green Team members graduated from the Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs, SIPA, and they have a capstone project, basically a thesis that they do collectively every year, and it's very rigorous. And here there's sort of a contest about which project they will choose to do, and luckily they chose ours. Usually it's something federal or international that they choose, but this sort of recognizes that mitigating the climate crisis really has to happen at the local level. And here they're going to look at what our carbon footprint is and come up also with strategies to minimize flooding in the village and to reduce our dependency on fossil fuel energy and how we can use more renewable energy. And then they're going to develop some a future roadmap as to how we could operate more sustainably in the future. And this would mostly be for village and school facilities, but they'll also make recommendations as to commercial and residential. So it's really exciting. We're trying to make this an academically legitimate experience for them and a really beneficial result for us. Two of them came out the last week and met with me and Green Team and Chris Rudishauser, and we really had a very robust discussion for a couple of hours. We're also going to take them on a tour of Ridgewood sometime later this month. So there are 11 of them, and I think at least one of them is an engineer. So it's a really interesting project, and this will be during this spring semester. So we're going to welcome them with open arms.
Questions?
So
That's
Mayor-
awesome.
Yeah, so Mayor, the request is just an endorsing resolution for this program. Obviously, they'll be here on the ground with us. That endorsing resolution will cover all of any insurance concerns and any liability concerns as they commence their work here in the village.
Yeah.
Terrific. This is very exciting. Pam, thank you so much for putting this together, along with the Ridgewood member team. This is really exactly what we need at this juncture.
And I'm so glad that my alma mater is doing this.
So I just want to echo that. I think this is so great for the kids. I'm so happy about it. And if you need help from any of us, because sometimes, you know, we had interns in Parks and Rec, and it was nice to have other people who wanted to show them other things. I think the whole council would be available for that, but it's such a great thing. I think it's excellent.
Agreed.
Great. Next.
And finally tonight, Mayor, we have a memorandum from Dylan Hansen, our Director of IT, which is a request for a resolution for surplus property. The IT equipment is no longer of need by the village. Various printers, monitors, desktops, laptops, the analog telephone system that was formerly used here. And in addition, just for the council's awareness, all hard drives and memory cards have been removed and destroyed separately. So we're looking to remove some of this equipment.
Questions? All good?
That's all I have under my agenda, Mayor.
Wait, I jumped in too quickly.
Do we only have one color printer in the building?
I'll yield to Heather on that one.
One color copier.
Right.
We have printers that print
Oh.
in color.
Oh, I
But we have
see.
one color copier.
Gotcha.
I know Beth leaves the office when I need something in color.
Great.
Mayor, that concludes my portion of the agenda.
Thank you very much, and let's go back to public comment.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Boyd A. Loving, 342 South Irving Street. I'd like to thank the council for moving the awarding of the contract for the soil evaluation up a week. As you know, I spoke at last week's meeting and I expressed my concern that the NJDEP had provided you a 60-day window, and had you awarded the contract on the 14th as you had originally planned to award it, it would have been outside of the 60-day window. So I appreciate you moving it up 1 week, and looking forward to having that work done. And I'd also like to recommend, if possible, that the full report from Matrix, that's the full report from Matrix, be posted on the new village website. There has been so much concern about what's going on, and a number of people have expressed concern about the transparency involved in this, that it would be beneficial to the public, and I think beneficial to the council, if the full report from Matrix was posted on the website so everybody could read for themselves exactly what is said, and posted relatively quickly after it is received by you. On a minor point, I read in detail the letter from the NJDEP that was dated December 11th, 2023, and I also read in detail the proposal that was submitted to you by Matrix. And although your contract award, the award of the contract, says that it is being for imported berm material evaluation, there were comments made in the letter from the DEP and in Matrix's report concerning the evaluation of undocumented material on the site. That is material that isn't found in the berm. So I would suggest that the contract is actually being awarded for more than just material evaluation of what was placed in the berm. It is a contract that is being awarded for an evaluation of all the material that is spread out throughout the site, not only on the berm. So that undocumented material needs to be evaluated as well. Also, there has been some discussion about the fact that material was received from 6 sources. I think we're forgetting also that the police department has records, which I've obtained, of illegal dumping on that site. So that material has to be accounted for too. I received copies of 2 summonses that were issued by the police department for material that was dumped on the site, and we are waiting for reports from the police department of people who saw material being dumped on the site, but by the time the police department got there, there was nobody to issue a summons to. So if we can recall, or if we can remember also that in addition to the material that came from the 6 documented locations, there are also reports, including 2 documented reports of illegal dumping that took place on the site as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Boyd.
Cynthia O'Keefe, 542 West Saddle River Road. I just wanted to ask a question. I think I heard, and if I didn't hear this correctly, please correct me. Keith, I thought I heard you say on the Fields call that an outside engineering firm is working on the SHPO application. And that was the first time I've heard this. I don't remember a resolution or a budget item popping up for that. So I'd like to know, what is the company, engineering company, and how much is it costing? Thank you.
Anyone else from the audience? Let's go to hybrid access. Susan?
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
We can.
Hi, I'm calling in regard to the footbridge. I want to say thank
Could you
you
just
for.
state your name and address, please?
Oh, sorry. Susan Ruan, 705 Kingsbridge Lane. I was listening to the meeting tonight, and I heard the various discussions about the footbridge, the East Saddle River Road footbridge, or Kingsbridge Lane footbridge. And I'm not certain how residents, I think there's a lot of misinformation coming from a source about the footbridge causing debris getting flooded and stuff. Because I have pictures which I have sent to the village council as well as Keith, the village manager, of the footbridge during Hurricane Ida, and and debris flowing underneath it. And that debris was not clogging the footbridge. It literally was floating underneath the footbridge right before the river went over its banks. So it's extremely high, that arch. Again, there was no, there's no drone footage of the footbridge. And that normally, like they was at Pahokis, there is a Route 17 bridge that goes over the highway that causes the dam-like effect. Again, I believe there's misinformation being spread about which bridge is causing the dam-like effect. It is not the footbridge, and I will send you additional pictures if you want to be refreshed about how the footbridge is not, the arch helps prevent that dam-like effect. Again, I'm a little bit upset to hear that, especially since there's no proof of that except hearsay, and yet there's a bridge that's up the road that I know people who actually saw that get clogged, and yet no one has discussed that bridge or how to fix that bridge. All right, I thank you for your time. Bye.
Thank you, Susan. Leo, you're up. Leo, you're still on mute. There you go.
Hi, good evening. Leo Ruan, 705 Kingsbridge Lane. Yeah, I just want to reiterate here, I think, is there some misinformation in regard to the bridge at Kingsbridge causing flooding? Every single time there's a flood, Ida, the last 3 storms, I've been there every time looking, and there's no trees blocking. Everything goes underneath the bridge. That bridge does not cause any flooding. I just want to say that every time there's heavy rains and there's any chance of any type of flooding, I am there, I'm looking at it, and I want to reiterate that that bridge does not cause any flooding. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Leo. Are we all good? Great.
Mayor, if I could just make a couple remarks. First of all, with regard to Mr. Loving, the proposals that were submitted to the engineering department for the soil testing at Shedler were created based on both engineering firms, or both soil testing firms, having the DEP letter. So anything that was addressed in there will be addressed by the soil sampling. Just want to make that clear. Secondly, with regard to illegal dumping, I had heard that there were issues with illegal dumping on that site. The police department has subsequently placed cameras on the site, so we do have the ability to evaluate if that's happening within the sight line of the cameras. Cynthia, with regard to your question, it's Suburban Engineering. Their quote was $2,600. I have the ability, because it's under the quote threshold, to be able to award that contract with the QPA sign-off. So that's what we did. And this was just to get a set of outside eyes on the SHPO application as it's being developed. Susan, with regard to the footbridge, again, I have no evidence that it is a choke point. I am just relaying information that I was able to gather on my tour of East Saddle River Road and the flood-prone properties on Saturday. I will tell you that Muncie did indicate to me while we were out there that there were concerns about the Route 17 bridge. I actually visited that on my way into work this morning, and that is going to be a conversation that we're going to have with the New Jersey Department of Transportation as to their monitoring of their infrastructure to make sure that that does not become a choke point in the future. That's all I have, Mayor.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I had 2 things. One, with Suzanne, I would love to see the pictures. I mean, Keith has a source, and we are moving the bridge forward, but if there's pictures, particularly during a hurricane, I think that would be helpful for all of us, because a hurricane's the maximum height, and we could see it. So if you could send that to the full council, that would be great. And Keith, would it be possible for us to have copies of the police report so we could see what was dumped and when? Because there's such public interest about.
I can speak to the chief about that.
Okay.
Anybody else? No? Then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you.